Okay, just a quick fourth example for this week, which is just to show a little bit of how we might introduce randomness to to the pattern making that we're doing here. So I'm going to go to vector, start again with a square grid, okay, and go to parameter slider, right, and just set that spacing. Let's just say to 0.5 for now. Let's increase the size of our grid to 20 and 20. Alrighty. And again, I only need the points here, so I'm going to turn that off and grab a parameter. I also don't want this, in this case, because I want a random effect, I don't want there to be the appearance of rows or columns, so I'm going to flatten this. Sorry, I have to flatten it out of here for future step, so that it's all one set of points, and you'll see why as we go forward. Let's draw a rectangle again, a simple element that we're going to overlap. Where is it? Curve, primitive, rectangle, and these are going to be our center points. And now, instead of typing out the domains, I'll actually, we'll practice actually constructing the domains. So head over to Math, Domain, Construct, and you'll find these components. I'm going to grab a slider, and I'm going to do something like this. Bring that in like that into both A and B. I'll increase this one. Just make it 0.5 for now for the sake of getting started, and then I'm going to drop this one down quite a bit. Yeah, something lower so I can see some effect. And then I'm going to, this is, and I'm going to right click on the A input and set an expression there, which is just negative x. So here it's kind of like what we did before when we set a negative value, but we typed it in. So now it's just going to be, this slider can be used to set both of those, and we can adjust it. So in the other one we didn't want to adjust it because it's 8.5 by 11. And in this case we do want to adjust it. So let's do that again over here. Okay, good. And we can go ahead and plug these into X and Y respectively. And we've got some overlapping large rectangles. And the overlap is something that we're looking for here. So, they can get taller and smaller. You can kind of see how they overlap. Let's leave it at that for now and keep on going. Okay, so the next thing is going to be to use some randomness to set some movement back and forth. So in the both rotation and in the movement of these objects, so that we can get a kind of a little bit more of a chaotic effect. So let's grab a move. Let's go to transform, move. What we're moving are the rectangles. It's going to be here. And how we're moving them is what we'll set up with some random values. So let's go over to set sequence random. Let's grab that. And then let's construct another domain. So we'll go to math, construct. And we'll get another slider going in here between 0 and 1 and drop the value down a bit. Something like this. And we'll do the same thing. We'll make that a negative x in our expression, like that. And this will be the numeric range that we're working with. Okay, so that's going to, so any random value is going to be within that range that comes out of this. You have to also tell it how many things you want, so we can go to set list length, and that goes into the amount. So we don't want to ever exceed the number of things we have. We have 441 rectangles here. And then we can put a slider in here that will make a change to the random, to the randomness as we make changes to this slider. So let's go to edit on that. We'll make it integers, and let's just set the max to 5. That'll be enough. And we can plug that into S. And now what we're going to do is set a vector direction that we're going to move these things to. So we're going to set the y-axis, set it along the y-axis. And this is going to be the magnitudes of those move vectors. Great. So as I reduce this down to 0, there will be no movement. As I increase it, you'll see some random movement in the x direction. And then if I change the seed, you'll get a wholly different pattern. So this gives you some options to work with. Okay, let's do this also to a rotation instead of just a move. So we're going to now apply the same kind of setup to a rotation. So what we can do is copy and paste this chunk of stuff. We'll go over to transform, grab a rotate. This geometry, right, the stuff that's been moved, is now going to be rotated, and we could turn that off for now. Remember to turn this to degrees like we have been doing, and then we need to set our center points to come from the original set of points back there. All right, so that's the centers of all the objects. And now let's set our random values into our degrees and increase that. Now this slider needs to be increased. It's too small, so maybe we can try something like this and make that slider type floating point. There we go. Now we can kind of scrub back and forth to get some rotations happening. Yeah. And we could go back and make these a little thinner. This is the X. I kind of like the way that looks proportionally. Yeah, just gonna make these, round these out a little bit. There we go. Cool. And yeah, we can kind of adjust from there. So this is a little bit more in line. So here you get an effect that's, you know, you can sort of see some randomness occurring, but along lines. Here we start to totally destroy the grid. We don't really see the grid much anymore, although some kind of emergent densities start to occur, which is kind of nice. We can change that with our seed. With our seed here, see which one seems to work well for us, change our rotations. We can even increase this a bit. I don't want to go too far with this. I want to keep it pretty subtle, but we can increase that a bit. Yeah, very nice. And remember, we could, in order to do this right and in order to get the pattern right, we have to, let's go over to our other file here from before. Remember this stuff where we set the page size. Let's copy and paste that. And let's bring that in. And it should still work, no problem. We can plug in our geometry into there. Let's turn on the rectangle, and we can see that we're already out exceeding the size of the page. So let's make some adjustments here. I probably want to decrease the spacing. Probably want to decrease the amount of movement, which is this one. Maybe bring that back a bit. Well, I mean, I guess we could do something like that. The rotation we can change a bit, but really it comes down to the spacing and maybe even the size. So let's drop this down a bit. This might be too much. Yeah, that's the Y. I wanted to leave that alone. I really wanted to change the X. There we go. That's a bit much. Yeah, that's given us some nice white space, I think. Maybe 16. There we go. You can see now that we're set onto the page nicely. Maybe I'll make these a little shorter. Cool. My name is set. Everything is ready there. And I can go ahead and start making my baking. Just to go through this one more time, we could make these things so we can bring these in. I'm going to need to make some new layers. Okay, so I just made a few new layers. I'm going to break this into some of those layers. So layer 4, and our points here, and the name. All right, and there we go. The same kind of thing can happen with the splitting as we did before. It's just going to be a bit more complicated. Okay, so it's going to take quite a bit more post-processing to get this to work, but I think the end effect could be quite nice. You know, you just have to pick and choose what you want to cut out. And I think areas like this might be nice to have, kind of like the example file shows. Areas like this where there's a white box in between the hatches might be actually pretty cool. But in other cases, you may just, you know, set a different rule, or, you know, just have less overlap. You know, go back, adjust some of these parameters in the script so that you don't get this kind of complexity. All right, so you know, sometimes it takes a little trial and error to kind of know what you want, but that's part of the assignment to get used to, you know, controlling your numeric inputs within a certain solution space, so that in the end you get an output that you're comfortable with. Okay.